considering that we're also talking to the teacher, I believe it's important to talk about the organization that we just came up for this particular reunion. And is that we're going to start talking individually. We have three questions that we found to be particularly objective. And then we also have three more questions that we're going to focus more on the discussion component. Now, are you guys ready?
Yes.
Nice. So, also, Andres, I don't know, you have to show yourself. It's important. It said in the guide. All right. While Andres is configuring that, I'm gonna open the Word document. And so we have the first question. What does the holistic research state about the different paradigms, in parentheses, the epistemic models, and typologies of research that have been traditionally considered as opposite? So Magali, what can you tell
Okay.
us about this?
Okay, so this question has several aspects of or components that I would like to break down in order to approach to a better comprehension of it. So we're talking about the epistemic models, right? And um, traditional epistemic models that have shaped the world of research are objectivism, right? Constructivism. Are you seeing my?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay.
Very clear.
Constructivism, right? And subjectivism, right? So these are the epistemic models that traditionally have shaped the world of research. So these models, let's take the example of objectivism. Objectivism follows a theoretical model. This is not a very good. I'm going to change it. A theoretical perspective that is close to the one of positivism, right? The positivism approach tells us that a reality is out there, and the researchers' work is to get that knowledge through the process of inquiry, statistical analysis, right? So this is why it follows a methodology, let's say experimental study, right? And its characteristic is to gather information through quantitative data. Then it comes its counterpart, the constructivism epistemic model that says that no, there is no reality out there. It values experience, and it says that we get knowledge through the subject's interaction with world, right? So bear with me because I need to let this clear in order to get to the how the holistic approach sees this epistemic model. So the constructivism theoretical perspective says that interpretivism, for example, interpretivism is a theoretical perspective that supports constructivism. Then it follows a methodology, let's say an ethnographic study, right? Ethnographic study. And of course, it takes techniques or methods such as descriptive, which follows qualitative data, right? So what these theoretical or epistemic models tells us? That there is one direction to get to knowledge, right? And usually they oppose to each other, right? This one goes one direction and this goes the other direction. This values analysis, this values experience. So this is just an example. So what does the holistic, going back to the specific question, what does the holistic say about these epistemic models? It says that, let me go back to my notes. I have some notes so I don't
Of course, yeah.
go.
It's not good to rely on memory, but
Right.
you're doing very good.
Okay, so it says that the holistic approach, so the holistic, it's an approach, or is a model, sorry, it's a model to research that looks for integration, right? To get to knowledge. But what does it mean? It values the other epistemic perspectives to research, but with a common and complementary aspect, which is the way humans acquire language and the way academics have created these theoretical perspectives to get to knowledge. So I want to first of all, I want to quote Jacqueline Hurtado that says about the holistic approach as a model that was created first as a response to the limitations, right, and the restrictions that other epistemic approaches uh, of research have done over time. For example, if, as we saw, the subjectivism or the constructivism and objectivism, they go opposite sides, right? So they restrict researchers to particular process. So what Jacqueline Hurtado says that is that the holistic research or comprehension to research sees this process as a global, evolutionary, integrating, concatenated, and organized process. This way, she says that it's not just about saying that the research process should take a qualitative and quantitative data. It's not about that. It's more about its epistemic approach. The epistemic approaches, the different epistemic approaches of all the epistemic models that have been created. For example, it takes analysis from the positivism. It takes experience from this is positivism, this is the subjectivism, right? It takes all those analysis to get to knowledge in order to integrate it to one specific model that doesn't restrict the researcher. On the contrary, that gives the researcher a wide variety of possibilities. Because as she pointed out, when we learn, let's take the example of our brains, right? We have two hemispheres. One is in charge of more analytical and mathematical processes. The other tells us more, or it's in charge of our sentiments, emotions. And this is how humans acquire language through a whole process that integrates imagination, invention, and cognitive processes as well. So what the epistemic approach, the holistic research approach to knowledge says that we should integrate epistemic approaches. It values them. It doesn't diminish them. It values them, but with a 4 elements that integrated as a common and complementary. I want to talk about this. I'm going to just name them. The first one being, these are the common aspects to integrate all the epistemic models into the holistic one. The first one being research as a possibility, research as a possibility to create knowledge. Create knowledge. This is the main characteristic. And everything, every epistemic model say that research should create knowledge. The second one, it should create new knowledge. New knowledge. It's not just about, and this is the common aspect of every epistemic models that have been created in the world of research. That research should create knowledge, should create new knowledge, because we are sometimes confused that with solutions of problems. And research is not about solutions of problems. This is another typology, right? The third one is investigation as a research process. So, investigation as a research process, as a process. And this should follow a specific, organized, and rigorous methods to get to knowledge. So first, as all we know, we need to gather information, revising bibliography, references, right? Going through other researchers projects, so as to not repeat the same knowledge that had been created, etc., etc. So it should be organized, rigorous, and follow a specific process, right? And the fourth one is research as a methodological process. It should be grounded on methodological process. Methodological. It should be methodological. So this is what the holistic approach to research says about the holistic approach. It was generated, or it was born as a response to those restrictive visions that research have put on knowledge, right? Yes, I think I have to. Oh, also, Jacqueline Hurtado. I'm not going to repeat that information because that's her diagram. She created a diagram in the form of an atom. I don't know if you have seen it.
Yeah.
Right?
The axis.
It's genius, because these diagrams shows us or illustrate how the holistic approach takes the perspectives from positivism, subjectivism, and constructivism and integrates it in one research model, right? And it values experience, analytical processes, and the last thing I would like to mention is the paradigmatical relationships. That's important, the paradigmatic relationships. The paradigmatic relationships integrates several dimensions of other epistemic models, such as experience and theory, right? Which comes from the positivism and the rationalism, right? Experience and theory. Also, it is dialectic and systematic. It's descriptive and both systemic, analytical, etc. That goes with the structuralism. Remember that those are the theoretical perspectives in which these um, epistemic models have derived from time. So this creates also typologies to research. So I think that's what in my opinion, sorry, answers these questions about the epistemic model. So the holistic models takes this into into consideration and values them as important elements to contribute to a vision that integrates a wider possibility to create knowledge through research in that perspective. So this is it.
All right, that was very good. Thank you. Now, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
And you did very well at explaining that in the past, in the traditional sense of research, we were limited by the epistemological models that we had so far. Now, would you agree to say that holistic research opens up new possibilities?
Yes, it does, because especially with, as Hurtado pointed out, it's not just about the methods, right? Like say, oh, I'm gonna do a research project and I'm gonna use both qualitative and quantitative data. It doesn't tell us, that specific approach doesn't tell us anything about the validity of the knowledge that we are creating. But it's important that it gives us a wider possibility to get to knowledge. For example, if I would like to do a research on social media, for example, uh, I can approach to that to create that knowledge from experience, from analytical approach, from interpretivism. So my experience, my knowledge, my cognitive processes, and also my values, my own values and my own cultural background is integrated into research. Because before it wasn't like that, right? It was just one possibility. If it was from positivism, then you shouldn't be giving your opinion, your values, or bringing your own conscious or your own opinions into the research, right? So yes, that's an interesting possibility that doesn't restrict the researchers to get to knowledge.
Very good. And also something that we didn't have before, as in the traditional sense. Very good. Now, before we move to the second question, Andres, would you like to say something, or could we move on?
You have your microphone off, Andres.
Yeah. It's off again.
Andres? Oh, I think he's having problems with Wi-Fi connection, maybe.
I don't know. Let me try to call him again.
You look like a YouTuber. Nice microphone.
Thank you. Yeah, I work for a long time doing online lessons, so I needed to improve
Right.
those things. Anyways, so let's take this time that Andres is off. I think it's, I agree with you. It's very cool, the model that Hurtado.
He's back.
Okay, you're back, Andres. Hey, I think
Andres,
we can hear you now.
do you have any questions?
Or you can write it down.
Yeah.
If you have trouble. All right.
I think he's having, okay.
Let's try to move on. So we have the second question, and is okay. Andres is back. Yeah. Hey, Andres. So would you like to say something about what Magali just talked about?
We cannot hear
cannot
you.
me.
Hello. This
Hey,
moment,
we hear you now.
Yeah.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. No. Yesterday, I purchased the computer and the new computer and by organize the microphone, parlant, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. The interview the Magali. In this moment, no question. Understand the information, but I comment a David. I don't have time. I don't have time to read the complete the text. Um, Therefore, the interview or the question a little, but uh, enough information to the discuss or complement. My role is the hear, the listen.
All right. Not a problem. Okay. So I guess we can move on to the second question. It's not a problem because in this discussion we can learn a lot from each other. So the second question states that how can you explain the principles of holistic research? Now, Hurtado tells there are 6 principles to holistic research. The first one is unity of everything. And how could we understand this principle? I make an analogy. So we are related to our brothers, to our parents, we are related to our cousins, but in a way, Magali, Andres, and me are also related if we look at it from 50 generations before. We can also be related to a fruit if we look at what's been the evolution of life 5 million years ago. So this is an universal principle. Everything is related. And this is the principle of unity of everything. It's quite simple. Now,
I would like to add something a little bit about it because it is evidence in the world of natural sciences when scientists discovered the structure of DNA, you know, the structure of DNA that follows a spiral shape, right?
yeah,
And they compare it with the structure of the galaxies in the universe that also follows a spiral shape. And they concluded that the biggest of the biggest that is external to us, it's the same of the smallest of the smallest that is inside within us. So they say everything is correlated. If it is the biggest of the biggest, it's the same as follows the same structure of the smallest of the smallest. That means that that's the correlation that we have with, and that's great, right? That's what you're saying about this principle, which is evidenced in natural science or biology. That's awesome. That's a
yes,
really
indeed.
great epistemic approach to knowledge. Mm-hmm.
I agree very much. And it also talks about what has been traditionally considered as opposite. It has something, a level of
Right,
relationship. And
right.
this is also explained at the paradigm level in the
Mm-hmm.
epistemology and all the models of knowledge that we just studied. All right. Now the second principle is simultaneity and synchronicity. Not only things are related by their characteristics, like the one Magali just mentioned, but we also deal with the forces of nature, and one of them is time. So two things can be related by time itself. For example, one is a consequence of another, or one happens after another in a synchronical manner. But there's also something super interesting, and it's that multiple things can happen at once. One of the most important in holistic research is the observation that you are doing as a researcher to the research thing that you're researching. So that interaction, the observation itself, it's a simultaneity. It's happening at once. The thing that you're looking at and the experience that you're having from studying that is a simultaneity. So that is the principle of simultaneity and synchronicity. Now, there's the third one, and it's integrality. So, all right, so far we know that things can be related, can be also related from a time perspective, but if things are related, can we say that there's a level of integration between them? For example, we have in society, we have families, we have societies, we have animals, but can we talk about all of this as a whole? The principle of integrality says yes. When we talk about a whole thing, a whole concept, we're talking about very minuscule groups that make part of a bigger thing. That's the principle of integrality. After that, we have the principle of open possibilities. This one I really liked because it states that the word is chaos and order. Now, why chaos? Everywhere we look at, we have problems. And at a research level, we're trying to solve those problems. When we're researching something and we have a problematic, our first idea is to try to solve that problem. And we instinctively believe that we're bringing order into that problem. But it's not like that so far, because every time you research something, you bring new ideas. And the fact that you're bringing new ideas is bringing even more chaos, is bringing more information to the world that we have. But that's not something to look at, it's something bad. It's something good. It's an open possibility because every research that you do leaves more possibilities to people that are interested in it to have something to say, to contradict it, to follow it, to replicate your study, and so on. So every research has an open possibility at a holistic level. Then the fifth one is the principle of complementarity. So far, we know that things relate to each other, that they relate to each other by time, and they can be integrated as a whole. We can talk about something, but we can talk about that thing as a whole at a general level. Complementarity says that when we look at individual groups, these groups tend to complement each other. One example of this is the paradigms, the epistemological paradigms that we looked. For example, we have a structuralism from Ferdinand de Saussure. He says that we have structures that tend to live in harmony, whereas we have Marx at the bottom level. Marx says, yes, we have structures, but these structures live in conflict. Complementarity says we can, even though these ideas tend to differ from each other, they complement each other. How? Where they talking about systems, and it's something that uh, Hurtado states as an axis of systems, the vertical level. And finally, we have the becoming principle. This one was quite hard to translate, but the idea is that truth is always becoming something. We can never get a good grasp of the truth because every research we have puts put us closer to truth, but as time passes, as evolution passes, new ideas come, that truth also goes far from us. So the way Hurtado describes this is that this race to pursue truth can be seen in the form of a spiral, and every wheel in this spiral is a stage of knowledge, which at that moment tells us, okay, we're getting into something. But in reality, when we get to that truth, we know, all right, there's something else to know about.
Changing of paradigms. Yeah.
Exactly, the changing of paradigms. There's also some talks about how some types of features lead to another. For example, evaluative research tends to go to, what was the other one? To analytical research. So first we evaluate the context, and then we analyze what that evaluation leads us to. And that those are the 6 principles of the holistic research. I don't know, guys, if you want to discuss something about this.
Yeah, it's interesting how they integrated these principles and they chose this specific epistemology of knowledge because when I read Hurtado says that the holistic approach was inspired in or by the quantum physics, right? And that goes with the principle of order and chaos, meaning that in quantum physics, when we or the scientists study biology, they get until the atoms, right? But when the quantum physics uh, research below that level, nothing or that the physics and the natural order doesn't apply to that level. It's completely different to the quantum physics. Below the atom, the study of the atom, below that, it doesn't follow that. So, in my opinion, that's why they integrated the principle of chaos and order. We have order in we can predict in the physics, in our reality, we can predict because we have a strict we can say if with the basic example of the quantum physics is when you throw a ball, you know where that is going to go down, right? That is go down because of the gravity, etc. But below the level, the protons, those I don't understand much, but it says it doesn't apply. That logic, that reality doesn't apply to quantum physics. That's the chaos in it, right? So this principle, it's interesting to me because that's where I can see why the holistic approach was inspired by quantum physics, because otherwise I couldn't understand it. Like, what? It doesn't apply to our reality, so why? That's the most important thing to take into account when doing research. There is not always like or a particular step that gets to knowledge, right? But it can go many directions. So that's interesting.
Now that you say this, I believe it applies a lot to the principle of simultaneity, which is quite hard to understand, but it is very applicable to mechanical physics and quantum physics, which both are happening at the same time. But the realization of each of this happen only because of our observation. All right.
Also,
Now,
and just the last thing about that simultaneity, how does simultaneity sees history, for example? Because when we research, we take into account history, right? How that would be interesting to analyze, and that's one of the concepts that I don't really get from that perspective. From like history is something linear, right?
yeah,
To us,
sequential.
or like for example, if we see it as it happened, past, present, future, right? But simultaneity says, or how the simultaneity takes that concept of linear in history and applies it to something that we can go in on a spiral, right? Study
Yeah.
as the holistic approach states.
So that
That's
happens
interesting.
at the moment of observation. The moment you study history, you're having simultaneity because it's you in the present who's studying story in the past. So that observation is simultaneity. That's the answer.
Okay.
Now, Andres, would you like to continue with the third question?
Okay, the third question. Uh, can you
Yeah.
hear? Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the Holy Research class of the experiment mean? Uh, After the introduction, the answer to complement the information, the two question, the David and the opinion, the Magali. The principle of the open possibility is the base for me, but the Holy Research cycle. Uh, I understand more adelant the explication, the principle. But the Holy Research cycle is runs through the 10 types of the research that are repeat and infinitum. When explain the infinitum is the Holy Spirit take 10 type comparative, explicit, practice, project, interactive, evaluative. The 10, the 10 forms or categories uh, permit to scale of the objectives, the concept of the phase, and the stage on the continuation of the 10. For example, David Magali, normally, or for me, normally the investigation or the process of the investigation is common. The investigator start or the finish, the relation, the method, quantity or quality, and the definition, the method, start the objectives, the technique, whatever pass on the investigation. The whole is the intention is to start, not the finish. Also, the start is the definition. What is the proposed the investigation? Then elation, the method. Understand? For example, I want to investigate for example, food junk. So I I think uh, the hypothesis, the experimentation, or whatever, we elation is the method, the analysis, the data. No, I don't think in the process, the investigation is definition de las categories, the objective. Then the Holy Research, I want to explain is the process. For example, in the physical quantic, we now the energy is not created or destroyed, only transforming. Yes? This process no es eliminate the knowledge, is creating a new concept previous the information and previous is new code emerges, the new energy. The conway is the necessary evolution. So The research holistic stage is important in three parts. One, the use of the static technique and intertextual technique is integrated through the complementary between cosmological and causalistic approach. But is important the principle in the start the conversation dimension, but the investigation is methodology. What is the thing? For example, is a structure, organized, sequential, linear. But the chaotic approach is different. It's the non-linear, priority, disorganized, but I don't say que investigation is what is como what what's it?
Are you talking about the holistic approach or your opinion?
No, but una frase to say sinónimo on the como,
You can say it in Spanish. Yeah.
Sí, es como decir que, como es la palabra, que no es a lo que salga.
Randomly.
Logical.
Okay.
It's
not at random. It's not at random. Like, see. Now I cannot say it in Spanish. Yeah, random. It's like coincidence. It's not coincidental, right? Is that what you mean? It should be a rigorous process. Yeah. It should follow specific steps that include both the cognitive processes and also that the ones that value experience and our own background or knowledge. Yeah.
For example, imagine de un scientific. Scientific is the logical, systematic, but it's a crazy scientific, que es, for example, out the normal. Is the comparing the cosmology and chaology, but the idea is homemade in the cosmology and the chaology. Alive, convive, both approach, no separate. The second, the holistic spiral is the method of the different epistemic model are expressed and organized in the perceiving how they lie together. Is the continue in the first affirmation. And three, is a perceiving how to the objectives that each model attributes to the research are not exclusive but complementary. It's continue the idea the investigation no es close, no es unique, but the idea is que whatever investigation occurs sometimes at the society and the complementary of the other science. For example, when the student in the pedagogical, whatever the information I can say or can use in the other areas. The research no es limited action, for example, describe, analysis, or very hypothesis is the common process on the investigation. It is go to merge the session.
All right, so let me do something. We're talking about, and it's important to restrict this question into just the spiral. I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna ask you, why do you think it's a spiral and not a circle or not a triangle? Or do you agree that it has to be a spiral? Let me just share my screen. Okay. So this one is the spiral. Why do you think it's a spiral, Andres? And you talked about the evolution and the infinite, which is very, very close. So do you agree that this has to be a spiral, or would you like to change it for a square, let's say? Or Magali, maybe. Would you agree
Oh,
that this is a good idea?
the spiral is because I think it's genius, that diagram that Hurtado proposes, because it divides each of the stages into dimensions. And each of, as we can see here, each of the levels have the same processes. But for example, in the level of the first level, the experience, right? That's the first level in which we approach to knowledge. And there is, this is also like a, what is this, like a kaleidoscope, right? That goes and gives a prism of possibility. It's the same phase with different stages that constitute a dimension. For example, experience, it's the dimension of experience that goes with the same process. It should go with the same process: analytical phase, diagnostic phase, predictive phase, and it repeats itself. But whether it is from experience, from analytical approach, from the interactive approach, from the participatory approach, it should follow the same stages of cognitive processes, because that's important. Research, according to holistic, it should be organized. It should follow specific steps that gets us to create new knowledge. That's important. Yeah, that's what I think. It's a really good analogy, a really good, it's not just on a spiral, it's on a spectrum of the spiral. It's awesome. I really like that, and it also helps you to understand this complex theory, right? This complex epistemic approach to research, because it's not easy, and this gives us like a more clearer approach, right? It's I like that.
But notice how we
Sí,
start.
okay.
We
Sí,
start
de
at
complement
this
the
level.
idea.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
Pardon. Okay, they complement the information the Magali. See, the spiral represent of the state of the knowledge and the research objective, but each level is complementary. Not necessary que evaluate the investigation is major the explorative. That all is important in the process, the research objective. The foreign the represented the the spiral is diagram, but each is, technique or method is important in the process.
All right. Very good. Yeah. So each of these are complementary, but the way we see infinite loops is, imagine that here we have a truth. For example, energy is never destructed. We know that for now, but with evolution and with the evolution of each of these stadiums, that truth is not definitive. We get close, but as we get close, then there's something else to find out about if whether the energy is infinite. For example, should we do a comparison with this other phenomenon? Should we analyze it, or should we describe it?
Another approach to that knowledge, yeah. Another dimension to approach to that knowledge, yeah.
All right, very good. Now, the final part of this discussion. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Is the three last questions, which is, what are some other features of the holistic research? Magali, what are some of their features that you would like to mention that you didn't see maybe in the reading?
Okay, let's see. The other features that I can see that the holistic approach, let's say the basics, right? Research should be about evaluating, exploration, description, analysis, comparative approaches, also predicting, proposing, and modifying knowledge. Also, it says that it can follow an approach to confirm that knowledge. And if you see it, it integrates the other perspectives, or, for example, the cognitive process that it should follow are explorative, evaluation, confirmation, modification, proposing, predicting, describing, analyzing, comparing, and explanatory. Those are the features, the main features that we can say that follow a holistic approach. That integrates the other like cognitive processes that the epistemic models throughout history have proposed in each of their epistemic models. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I agree very much with you. How about you, Andres? You're mute.
Discontinue the Magali. The future of the holistic research is eliminate or delay the forum, the copy and the paste. It degenerates a new concept capable of solving those needs. The proposal is developing new thinking and escape from the old and what ideas associated.
All right, so go beyond what has been traditionally proposed. I think something else that holistic research brings to the table is that it brings more unscientific reasoning for researchers and also for research. Let's say, for example, I'm doing a quantitative method on physics. I can also talk about how physics has not had a good place in politics. Maybe this is something that Elon Musk is doing right now. He's developing some batteries while he's doing qualitative analysis on those batteries. He also talks about politics, which is not scientific, but it's very welcoming to the scientific dialogue. Now, for question. Which of these new concepts that we just study and we read you don't understand and you would like to get some help from our mates
Or the tutor, yeah.
or the tutor?
Yes, I think when thinking about my research project that I proposed, or that we all proposed in the last activity, in the previous activity, and seeing the dimensions or the stadiums of the spiral of research, I would like to know, where did I leave my research project? Like, how can I identify from my own research project which of the stadiums I am, or where to start or where to get? Because sometimes I thought that I was proposing a more qualitative approach to the research. And how can I integrate that analytical approach to get to that level of analysis, analysis with statistics, etc., that I should get? Or how can I get to that level without going so deep as to, for example, a positivism epistemic approach to research? Because I don't think I am able to do that, because it's very difficult for me to analyze data like that, like in quantitative data, statistical approach. I don't know that. So how can I do it without, or without following that deep conception of scientific approach or analyzing data in that way? I would like to know that. And I think that's like what I am, like, I know I understand the theory or the theoretical perspective, but I don't know how to apply it. That's what I mean. Like the practical approach related to, for example, my research project. That's what I would like to know.
The main question was that you want to identify in which datum of knowledge is your research, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Which one would you guess from what you
read?
Just guessing.
Yes, exploratory. Yeah, because you know what? You don't know this, but I changed my research project, my research problem. I changed it, so I took a whole day to get investigate and gather information and restructuring what I wanted to do. So I think I am in the exploratory stage, and I would like to know how to go through that, from that to the other processes, and how do I integrate all of those processes, right?
Mm. All
that,
right.
That work can say, okay, you're doing this holistic approach to research.
Yeah, I very much agree, but I unfortunately don't have the answer to that. But it's a very interesting question. Now, as for myself, it's not like it's not that I did not understood some parts of the text, but I found that when the author Hurtado talks about the structuralism, puts Saussure as in contrast to Marx, but they are very much the same. In a way that Marx states that societies tend to live in conflict, but Saussure talks about languages and how these languages complement each other, but they are also in conflict. For example, there's the concept of langue en parole. The language that you know in your head might be different from the language that there's in a country. It's very similar to Marx. So I find it quite contradictory in the reading. And I don't know if anyone would like to follow up with that.
Sorry, I just...
Yes, go ahead, Magali.
I went out and then I came back because I don't know what happened. Maybe my internet, I had problems with the internet, and when you were saying, I couldn't hear. I don't know what happened.
Okay, well, a quick summary is that structuralism and Marxism tend to be very similar, whereas Hurtado says, no, they're completely different. They're complementary because they're different. But if you look at a deep level, they're very much the same. That's my observation. Now let's focus on this final part to close this session, and is this holistic approach innovative? Andres, do you think it's innovative?
We cannot hear you.
Okay. For me, okay. In this moment, can you hear?
Yes, here. Very well.
Okay. For me, yes. But my conception, the research investigation changed, but traditional method, but decide to investigate, choose quantity or quality. In this moment, to choose the selection, pardon, choose the the research phenomenal, correctional, whatever method. But uh, reading the Hurtado and the text, they changing the the thinking, but it's important first um, choose the objective, the research, the investigation is the key in the process. Introducing the spiral for me the impact in the concept. Uh, Now, it's innovative, but changing in the you understand the method is complementary, no es exclusive a un process. One selection dependent de my hypothesis of the project. For example, a mixed, un comparative invested or predict invested dependent the I needed the investigation is the complement, but uh, for me, impact the concept or the principle, the possibility open, the approach the chaotic and the cosmology uh, in the process to do innovate in the investigate research investigate.
All right. How about Magali? Do you think it's innovative, this
Yes, I think
approach?
it's very innovative. No, innovative because the way it was proposed, it was its approach. It has been done. It was before it was proposed as an integration of research, but following just the methods, right? Like, oh, research should be about qualitative and quantitative data. That has been proposed in some of the typologies of the different epistemic models. However, with the holistic approach, they didn't stay at that level of the methods and techniques, but they integrated with the epistemology approach, which is mm, more important because it gives a wider range of possibilities. If we take how to acquire knowledge, right, or how its knowledge approach get or acquired by humans, then you have a wide variety of possibilities, right? You can take the structuralism, the pragmatism, the empirism, right? The empirism approach and change that approach as well. So if you see that, that's innovative. That's very innovative because it has been done, but not from the epistemic models, but just from the techniques. Oh, you should include both qualitative and quantitative data, but that's not what it is about because it restricts you to doing an analytical or descriptive approach, right, to research. But when it is from epistemology, that gives us a more wide variety of possibilities to approach to knowledge, not just the restrictive techniques or methods.
I also agree very much that is innovative, especially at the horizontal level. We see that we can do a research just because I'm part of the problem, action research, but I can also take a transformative approach in the case that I'm not content with the present that I'm seeing. So it is unscientific, but it's still very innovative. So I agree with you all, guys. Now, would you like to have anything to say that is not related to the questions, or are you happy with this discussion?
I think we have done really well.
All right.
And we have covered all the things that we needed to.
Yeah, I agree very much. Well, in that case, I appreciate your assistance. We're gonna see at the end of this call how everything was recorded. Would you guys agree if I update it on YouTube and I share the link here?
Sure, please.
All right. So until later, have a nice day and take care, guys. Bye-bye.
So do you. Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye.